How's it going, everyone? I know a lot of new people are getting into Marvel Duel, which is the auto chess and card game mashup that has been making some big waves in Southeast Asia territories and here a little bit in the United States and in the EU. And as this game continues to get more popular, even without a global release, I do want to give you some information on how you can get your feet wet and find a path to succeed. Now, there's been some meta shakeups here recently, and there's going to be a bit more because there's going to be a new superhero and some new expansions, new cards that have been teased as of today that are going to be coming out really soon. But a lot of what people are flocking to right now are armor-based decks, and that's because of some recent nerfs to the Marvel Knights deck type, which really put this deck in its place. But now that that is not so present, it is possible to focus on armor-based builds and get a lot of really good results. Now, I do want to clarify that this is going to be based on a budgetary build. I don't have all of the proper cards for Thor, but this build can definitely get you really far, and I say that as a player who's played it quite frequently and currently sits in Masters, so just under Conqueror, which is the highest rank that you can get. So I do want to give you a little bit of insight on this deck and how it is played. This deck is primarily about Thor, okay? He is incredibly powerful, and armor directly affects him. So you'll see right here in the 4 decks that we have to work with, I'm showing you Thor first because I think it is the most important. We have one-offs of everything leading up until Thor, and you'll notice there's a lot of equipment inclusions in here, and that's for good reason, but we'll get to that here in just a minute. But the first 4-off we run into is Thor himself, okay? The God of Thunder. So he's a 5-cost 8/8. 8 being he has 8 armor and 8 power. So he is retaliate, which means he's going to be swinging back whenever he is struck. Now, this card gains half of the amount of power when it loses its armor in battle. Now, this is a recent adjustment, but it is still really, really good. So this is something you really need to keep in mind, is that Thor has a lot of power behind him, and you can supplement him in a lot of different ways to make him even better. So our goal is we want to get Thor to 4 stars, hit his maximum star level as quickly as we can. And one of the other tools that we have that lets us do that is Asgardian Glory. So this is a 6 cost, so it's at the end of the final level of the shop. It adds 2 Asgardian character cards with a cost of 5 or lower from the card pool to your hand. So it's specifically talking about card pool. Now that is what you create in terms of what you are building in your Thor deck. And you'll notice we have quite a bit of equipment here and other actions, and that's for good reason. It thins the card pool so that when you get to the point where you're pulling Asgardian Glory, if you don't already have a 4-star Thor, it will more than likely give it to you. The chances of it pulling this one-off Hogan or Throg or the Asgardian Pegasus, if you didn't get it early, are much smaller. So this will allow you to get Thor, who is your main powerhouse. Now, a couple of ways you can supplement him would be Thunder Fulmination, which gives a character power equal to their armor until the end of the next battle. This is great for Thor. He's got tons of armor naturally, especially if you build your board correctly with some things from the general card pool. So this can be really useful. You can also supplement Thor with things like Mjolnir, Dragon Fang, Hofund, Asgardian Shield if you need to. So in terms of what we're adding to this, we do have some Captain Marvel action here, but it's not entirely necessary. Negabands here can be useful. The rest of the stuff, not so much. It's just kind of here. Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, is a really good card that can get you good mileage if you need some board presence. She does offer a lot. Now, in terms of Iron Man, we do have some 4-offs here that get us quite a bit of mileage, okay? And that is Madam Mask and Iron Man Model 1, okay? So these are, I've said okay a lot. So these are 2 costs, meaning you are going to get these at the base level shop. In this game, shop starts at level 2. And the goal is you don't really want to progress past 2 until you have both of these guys at 4-star. So Madam Mask is essential because whenever your shop is upgraded, you gain 2 health. This gets even higher whenever she has 4 stars. So it's going to generate you more life, which will allow you to stick around longer. Giving away around isn't as detrimental to you as it normally would be. Life points are a resource to be used. That advice coming from the great horrible Chopstick. So she has a lot of use here. Iron Man Model 1 is just a 2 cost with 3 power, but whenever your shop is upgraded, he gains 3 armor. Once you get this guy to 4-star and you start cranking up your shop for cheaper cost because you've waited, this card is going to go from okay to very, very powerful, and will actually give you quite a bit of mileage into the end game. So those cards right there are really what you want to focus on out of Iron Man. Stealth armor can be useful in terms of sniping key elements of the Hela build, because he has the power to annihilate, which is he goes after his nearest opponent. So this is the only way, well, a good way to snipe. I won't say the only way, but it is a reliable way. So we do want to have that there, just in case we need it. And then the legendary Iron Man can also come in handy in certain matchups. The neutral card pool, we're actually running 4 of Ghost, and that's because Ghost can fetch you Madam Mask or Mark 1, which you want to get to 4-star right away. So Ghost actually has quite a bit of utility here. Hydra Elite Soldiers, they have good stats. Wasp is not bad because she can give one of your Guardians guard that doesn't already have it, and there are quite a few in here. So the Heavy Shackles can be used to give certain characters more armor. Baron Zemo is really, really good value. So his last words when he dies, he defeats a random opponent with a cost of 3 or lower and summons a Hydra Elite Soldiers on the opposing battlefield. Initially, this was used as a counter to Marvel Knights because 2 of their key players, Elektra and Luke Cage, were within that star range, in that cost range, excuse me. But this can be powerful in other matchups too, so he's definitely worth running if you have him. Hyperion at 4, and that's just because Hyperion can summon characters with a cost of 5 or lower at star level 1 and give them guard. It's just more longevity to your board. And if you have multiple copies of Black Panther, I would consider running him because it gives your characters with guard, they gain +5 power, and they all have retaliate. So if you have more than 1 copy of Black Panther, I definitely recommend using him. I don't, so this is kind of the best I'm running with, but make no mistake, this build can still be very effective, and here I'll show you how. Shop 2 is one of the most important phases for this deck, and I say Shop 2 because that's your level. You'll notice there in the shop that you pay more of your battle gems, which is the currency you use to buy things, to level up as you go, and that's going to get cheaper the more rounds go. So you want to stay at level 2 because getting Iron Man Mark 1 and Madam Mask to 4-star is crucial. That Mark 1 will translate into a unit that's got quite a bit of power to it, and Madam Mask, as I mentioned before, is going to give you the health to stick around, so it won't feel as detrimental if you lose a couple of rounds to some really aggressive decks. So what we're drawing into right now is actually not a bad start. We already have 1 mask and we have 1 Mark 1. So even though you're going to be tempted if you're playing this deck to go ahead and take the free shop level up to level 3, there's not really anything there for you. Remember, we want to 4-star these 2-star units, okay? These 2-cost units rather, excuse me. And you're more than likely to run into them just based on the math if you're only level 2. That means you're not muddying your pool with a bunch of stuff that you're not going to need. So this is the best way to go about it. And that is in almost any of the matchups that you could run up against. Now, nothing definitive is on the board because it's going to be that way for the first few turns. It's going to seem like a hodgepodge of stuff on the board. So it's looking like we could win this exchange here. Depends on how the numbers go. And it actually works out in our favor, so we do win this exchange. We managed to float around 20 health, which is good. Again, we want to, maintain a significant life lead so that we can take a few rounds where we don't come out on top. Because since you're playing to the 5 cost and shop 3 and 4 don't have much for you, the odds of that happening are pretty high. So we pull into Ghost here. We're going to go ahead and drop Ghost because Ghost has the ability to summon another 1-cost minion, which just increases the chances of you getting the things that you need. Unfortunately, the yellow jacket's not all that amazing, and selling the Ghost is probably a mistake. We could have probably ditched Minerva instead. So we cycle 1 shop and we 2-star our Mark 1, which is great. And since he is the bulkiest of our guys, we're going to go ahead and throw that Asgardian shield on him, which ensures that he has guard, meaning that units are forced to attack him in normal circumstances. So it actually makes him a useful Guardian character. Now this board right here, clearly playing to a little bit of Spidey, a little bit of Guardians, but it's not all that scary. The Ross could be problematic, but there's poor placement for the Ross because the Ross gives the units to the left and right of him bonus power. So we didn't really see that get used to its maximum effect, so we're going to come out on top here, which is good. Again, remaining at shop 2 until we get both of these units to 4-star. That's just the most optimal way to go about it. In terms of these, you could take, for your passive skill, you could take the free refresh, but we're going to take firepower because it may give us that extra push in a couple of these building rounds to allow us to get what we need. So we get masked to 2, we draw our third Mark 1, and I'm tempted here to pull the Ghost. I'm very tempted, but because it's super random, I decide not to. Cycle again, we actually get our third mask, which is great. So we're getting to the point where we're going to be able to ditch a few of these weaker units that we've pulled out of the pool, which is important. I do want to stress that you should consider getting the one-offs from your other decks instead of cards sometimes from the general pool, because what that will do is that will remove them from the pool and make it more likely that you're going to pull the duplicates in that shop pool that you need more often than not. So if anything, we're doing what we can to really make it more likely that we're going to get what we need. We're coming up against a mix of MK and Guardians here. Again, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. Our board's not bad, so it looks like we could come out either ahead or at least even on this. So the Korg is going to strike at the Mark 1 and then throw that one out there. And then we will get the trade, so we will just barely come out on top, but that's fine. This deck is built for longevity. It's gonna get better the more turns that you have. So we will get to that point. We just have to get there. Coming up on a shop again, I'm again tempted to pull the Ghost, but decide not to. We go with the 2 refreshes and we find what we need. We can 4-star Madam Mask and we can 4-star the Mark 1. So that is, once we start leveling up our shop here, you're going to notice our health pool is going to go up tremendously, and the armor count on that Mark 1 is going to go up tremendously too. So I decide the best course of action here is now, once you have finished with everything that you need from shop 2, you need to get to shop 5, because that's when Thor becomes available. Thor is your powerhouse, and then eventually pushing to shop 6. So we take these assemblies. We don't get anything crazy out of them. So at this point, I decide to go ahead and ditch the yellow jacket, place the extremis down, and you'll notice that, look at how much armor that the Mark 1 has. It's 28 over 12 power. You know, it's not bad. And we went from having roughly 20 health to 35. And we still have 2 shop upgrades to go. And if Mask sticks around, that's a lot of health for us. You'll notice we're sitting comfortably at the top of this ladder match right now in first place on a bit of a streak. We're going to float those 3 battle gems, and that's one thing to keep in mind, is that battle gems, they will stay in your pool if you do not spend them. And one of the biggest shortcomings for players in this game, myself included, is knowing when to have restraint and not just go on endless refreshes in your shop. Sometimes it's just better to float those battle gems, knowing that you can take a loss on a round or 2 and still live. So this exchange right here is really, really close, and the targeting actually ends up making it where we unfortunately lose here, just barely though, but we have the health to spare, which is one of the reasons that Mask is so crucial. So even though we took 6, we're only at 29. That still puts us as the highest health pool in this match. So again, we're focusing on Thor, so don't attempt to starburst anything else here. It's not necessary. You want to get to shop 5, which is where we are, and now the big thing is you want to fetch Thor. Thor is the big powerhouse of this deck, especially when he has Hulk in the supporting cast who gives bonus armor, and he is in the general card pool, so you can 4-star him. We're also looking for Black Panther for support, and some of those other cards that lend themselves well to units that have lots and lots of armor. So we're doing refreshes here. We don't really come up on Thor, and I decide, instead of just getting myself into a huge sink here of endlessly refreshing, I decide to probably make not the best decision and grab Mjolnir. Now, I could put this Mjolnir on the Mark 1, but I like having Guardian on Mark 1 because it's going to force, under normal circumstances, for units to attack that unit first. And because it's the most powerful, it's got a lot of units to spare, it can really thin out your opponent's board. So in my mind, it's not the best move putting a Mjolnir on this Hydra Elite Soldiers, but when we do come across a Thor and some of these other better armor units, more than likely the Hydra Elite Soldier is going to go away, especially because he's just a one-off. So you'll get that Mjolnir back, is kind of the way that I'm looking at it. So this right here is not looking amazing for us, because it's going to depend on the targeting here in terms of what we can get. So if we get the targeting right with the aim bomb, we'll actually be okay. And what ends up happening is we do get the wash, which is just fine. We wouldn't have been hurting otherwise, because again, we're at 37 health. You'll notice one player finally goes down. So again, we're still at shot 5. There's no real reason to push to 6 just yet. It's a little expensive to do at 12 battle gems. And again, firepower is something you want to keep in mind, which means if you float 4 battle gems, if you have them remaining at the end of a preparation phase, then all of your units are going to get some bonus power, which can be useful in some situations. And you'll notice here we finally strike gold and get our first Thor. So we ditch Minerva. It's finally time for her to go. We're going to go ahead and drop this Thor. Now, he becomes a lot more valuable when you get dupes. But in taking a look at him really quick, you'll also notice that we came across a Baron Zemo. Now, I make the decision to put heavy shackles on Thor because he benefits from having more armor, especially if we don't have dupes. And I cycle in. We don't pick up the Zemo yet, but he's going to come back. But we do get a Hulk in our shop. So what I decide to do is I want to go ahead and get him now. So I decide to sell the Kree soldiers and the Extremis suit to pick up the Hulk. And you'll notice that every one of the Guardian units now has significantly more armor. There's a lot of value in Hulk for this deck, and it really helps that he's in the general card pool. So it's going to allow us to do what we need to do. And we're going to come up against, this is a bit of a weird board here, but that really powerful Ironmonger could become a problem. It's just going to depend on how things shake out. But the targeting is RNG, aside from the situations involving Guardian and Annihilate. There are certain factors in this game that, while it is difficult to do, you just kind of have to accept that there are going to be things outside of your control sometimes. You can prep as best as you can, but things are going to unfold the way that they're going to unfold. So losing Hulk here before we lose Thor it sucks, because that's going to get rid of a lot of that bonus armor to Thor, which it kind of caps his power a little bit. Now luckily Red Hulk goes away, which really cripples that little symbiote there, so we are able to come out on top, go ahead and close this out, and drop one more player out of this match. So now there's only 3. So we've guaranteed 3rd place, which is a win. You're going to get rank ladder points for it, which is fantastic. But we don't want just number 3. We want number 1. And we can definitely do it. Just depends on what we get. So once again, we cycle up and we find Zemo. Now, Zemo is a little more valuable here because if you place him first, because you want him to die. You want Zemo to die because then you trigger his effect, which removes 2 units of 3 cost, which is really, really good. It was better when MK was very, very prominent, and even though it's not now, it can still be really, really valuable here. So we pick up the Zemo. We don't get a dupe of Hulk. We don't get a dupe of Thor, but that's okay because we did save the firepower, so our board is actually pretty scary. And that's even without the Zemo. So you're going to notice his units are mostly going to be running into ours and just kind of collapsing. The Gamora is kind of scary because she's kind of big, but we do have enough oomph here to kind of get around that. Now she chews through the Mark 1 there because he didn't have much power, but Zemo drops 2 units in exchange for the Elite Soldiers and they get wiped out relatively easy. So Gamora is left to fend for herself there, and then we clean up that win as well. And you'll notice that since the mask is at 4 stars, we are going to be dealing a solid chunk of damage to whoever we come up. We left that person with just 1. So when you come up against a match where you're up against a player that's already KO'd, it is essentially a free round. Now, I say essentially because it is possible, depending on your composition and the way you play, it is possible to lose a round to a player with 0 health. And if that happens, you will take damage. So just keep that in mind. We find a dupe of Hulk, and we also find Thunder Fulmination, which is really, really good. It's that action that takes the amount of armor that you have and adds that to your power. So some great candidates for that here are Thor and even the Mark 1, but we're not going to use it because the chances of us losing to this KO'd opponent are very, very slim. So you just kind of want to use this as a round where you don't really feel like you have to have firepower in the background for this. You can kind of spend and hold on to resources for the more dangerous opponents that you're going to be coming up against here very soon. Which will be happening, and you'll see more of those here in just a moment. But you'll notice here there's a significant power gap. We're overcoming this with ease, so we'll be moving on to the next round. So again, that's why it's always best to spend your resources there, to build up your resources, but save those killer cards for a later time when they're more crucial. Now we are at shop 6, so we are going to be looking for the Asgardian card that will add 2 Asgardian cards to your card pool in your hand. So that's what we're looking for. We do pull into Black Panther, and he is really useful, and this is a good chance for us to go ahead and ditch Mask. So we drop the Black Panther. He has benefits for all of the other Guardian characters, and then we sell the support item that we had in there. Consider picking up the Dragon Fang, but it's not really all that necessary. We'll just continue to cycle because, again, Thor dupes are going to get us further than just about anything else. We're coming up a little dry, but we should have the oomph behind this board to get through, and even if we don't, there are other options too because we have tons and tons of health, so we're not super pressed for time. We do end up coming up against a Thor dupe, which is great. We're going to pick that up first, but the other Hulk dupe will be worth having at some point. So I'm considering where this Thunder needs to go. Thor and the Mark 1 are both really valid candidates. I decided to throw it on the Mark 1, and the reason I did that is because he has Guardian, and the other opponents, they're going to be crashing into him and hopefully melting before they become too problematic. That's what we want them to do. So we're in this situation where the Hood is actually going to go ahead and pop Zemo, and he gets rid of that Luke Cage, which is great, leaving him with not much. In all honesty, it's a pretty weak Moon Knight, and the Hood in my mind is never really that scary. He's not really a card that you would have run under normal circumstances. So we do come out on top of this exchange. Notice our opponent has 36 health, so he was relying on Madam Mask as well. But, you know, we're just going to be looking to chip away. That's what we're going to be looking to do, and it's just me and him. So we end up picking up our third Hulk, which is great. We still only have the 2-star Thor, but hopefully we're going to come across a card here to change that here in the near future. So again, we're cycling, and we do actually come across Asgardian Glory. And you'll notice as we use it, we get 1 extra Thor, and then we get the Pegasus, which we don't need, so we're just going to go ahead and sell it. So now we're looking for 1 more dupe here of Thor and Hulk. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ditch the Elite Soldiers because even having just the 1-star Hulk the 1-star Thor is valuable here. So I play him in that extra slot. Now, eventually we're hoping to have 4-star Thor, but we don't have that right now. But having him on the board and throwing that Mjolnir on him that we've been holding for a while certainly isn't a bad choice. So we've got a pretty decent board here. Now, penetration is going to be scary, and that is the effect that digs through underneath a person's armor and just chips away at their power, which Punisher here is capable of doing because of the Centurion blades. So watch this attack. You'll actually notice the 18 goes through Hulk's armor there and just gets rid of him, which clears a ton of bonus armor for our board in this instance. Now Zemo sweeps up 2 units there for himself, and the Thor is going to be getting bonus power based on all the armor that's being spent. So even though that losing the Hulk is detrimental, it definitely hurts, we're still in an okay situation here because we just have the better board. So once again, we come out on top of this exchange. Firepower not really a factor here because the starbursts are going to be more valuable than the firepower at this point in the game. So we draw into our 4th Hulk, and we actually draw into an Asgardian Glory, which is great because that's pretty much, because of our thin Asgardian unit pool, it's basically a guaranteed 4-star Thor. Now Escape the Void and the Blast there are both decent choices unless we actually do get our 4-star Thor, which is great. So we're going to go ahead and drop him. At this point, we do not need the shackles on Thor anymore. Mjolnir will work just fine. And we actually do pick up another Asgardian Glory here, and I'm tempted to take something else, but decided to take the Asgardian Glory anyway. We play that, and we usually get a 2-star Throg, which is not bad. Throg is actually a pretty decent unit. It just happens that Thor in most circumstances is better, but because we got him, we're going to go ahead and use him. And then we come across another Thunder, which can work extremely well with either the Mark 1 or Thor himself. I once again decide to put it on the Mark 1 because, again, units are going to be crashing into him because he has Guardian. So that's where we are right now. We're just kind of waiting to see how things unfold here. The Repulsor Blast isn't really going to do much to his board. They're all kind of decently chunky units, but we are hoping that we will come out on top here and we actually get a really good Zemo exchange there. So we're actually in pretty terrific shape. And the Hulk manages to stick around because he's 4-star this time. So he's got more power, so much so that the Punisher, not being any higher stars, he can't quite chew through. So that was a lot less scary. And you'll notice we have a lot of units left. We're going to deal big damage here for a grand total 21. And that will close out this match in our favor. It is the power of Thor. Thanks for taking the time to check out this Marvel Duel deck guide. I hope it is helpful to you. And if you haven't had a chance to check out this game yet, I can definitely put out a video that shows people that are not in those Southeast Asia territories how to get their hands on it. It's actually really, really easy, and this game is a lot of fun. So thank you very much for taking the time to check it out. Hope you guys are staying safe out there, wearing your masks, and I'll see you next time.